Hello. Hello, hello. I forgot that I wanted to hook up my mic for when I do these because it's been a minute since I've done anything like this. Um, and then it was right before it was time to go live, and I was like, I don't have time to do that. I also realized that like four four of the books that I read this month were either audiobook or ebook, so I don't have like a copy to hold up. Um, which is a bit of a bummer. And I tried to figure out how to do that like in StreamYard, and it's not easy necessarily. I mean, it is potentially. I just didn't have the time to figure it out. So maybe by next month when I do a wrap up, it will be better. This was just like I want to talk about the books I read in July, and it's already like halfway through August, and where has the time gone? And yeah, I meant to do this last week. I had last week off of work, but I filled my time with other things. So I didn't actually have time. But now, today, I have time. So hello, everyone. Hello, Mook. Hello. Hello, Mari. Hello. I'm good. It's super rainy here today. Um, I went climbing earlier because I joined the climbing gym. I've just been a super busy bee. Um, so yeah, hello, 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 everyone that is popping in chat. So I'm just gonna get going as far as talking about books. Some of these I read again like a month and a half ago. So if I'm a little wonky on some of the um, plot points of things, I apologize. But that's why I want to do this sooner rather than later. So I read 8 books last month. Um, kind of mid, I would say. A lot of threes and a few fours, no fives, but that's okay. But I feel July was a pretty decent month. I did some reading for the Hugos. Some of the books in here are Hugo nominees. Um, so I did some reading for that. And more of my in-depth thoughts on those books and how they rank and everything will be in a vlog that I'm currently doing. I think I have like three, three more books to read for it at least, maybe four. Two of the novels and maybe like two, or maybe only just one novella. I don't know. So I did some reading for that last month, and then some novels and things. So first thing I read in July was Prime Deceptions. I'm so sorry that this is not. Could I mirror my camera? Actually, is that a thing that I'm allowed to do? Wait, this. I don't like sometimes how I look when that happens. It's weird. Okay, so that's how apparently I look in real life. I'm not a Gemini. I'm a Leo. I just had my birthday this weekend. Um, why does the side of my head look flatter when I did that? I need to wash my hair today. Anyway, Prime Deceptions, Valerie Valdez. This is the second book in the, I think it's just called the Chilling Effect series, which is book one. This I describe as, it's basically, if you're a fan of Mass Effect video game series, you probably don't like this. This is essentially Mass Effect. If Shepard, who's the main character of Mass Effect, was less competent and a little more chaotic, and Mass Effect was slightly more comedic. So if you've played Mass Effect, there's like a couple missions that are slightly funny. That's kind of how this feels. Now, this one, being the second one, I can't talk a ton about it, but what I will say is this one felt more cohesive than the first book. The first book, chaos. I mean, both, like the whole series is kind of chaotic, but the first book was really chaotic, and it felt like so much happened in one book that it almost felt like a super long book. These were like 40 pages out. It felt longer than that. A lot of time passes. Just a lot happens. This one felt more like we were following a single thread, and that thread was good, and it made sense. And yeah, and we're also in this one facing our main character has some stuff with her past that she sort of has to revisit. So that's really good. If you like, again, if you like Mass Effect and you like Shepard and Garrus and Thane, there's some good romances in this with that. Yes. I really like that. It felt like Eva grew from the events of the first book. Yeah. So she definitely feels more grounded here, and she has to like again deal with a lot of stuff from like her past and things. So yeah. And just the way that things are navigated, there's psychic cats in here. Like it's just like a little delight. And yeah, I like this series. The final book is already out; it's a completed series. So if you're into like fun sci-fi, um, I never feel like really like these characters are in any kind of real danger, which is fine for me. Like there are some sci-fi books where like it feels dire all the time. I think if you, again, if you like Mass Effect, if you like the Expanse series is heavier than this. But if you like the Expanse, there are elements here of that as far as like a really fun crew. In here, there's way more aliens than Expanse because Expanse doesn't really have aliens, at least in the first like books. So a lot of different like alien species and stuff in here, which is fun. So yeah, I generally like this series. This was 4 stars. I think I liked it the second book slightly more than the first. Um, then I listened to The Unspoken Name by A.K. Larkwood. This is a story about orcs, basically, but it's like orc civilizations and stuff, and it's taking away from, or it's going from that idea that like orcs are usually like barbarians and stupid and whatever. Um, this is very like political fantasy, I would say, in a lot of ways. So our main character, whose name I'm forgetting because I had to listen to it. So how do you say her name? Oh my gosh, I can like hear Sore. Oh my god. I again, I listened to this. I can like hear the audiobook almost saying it, but I can't say it in my head. Anyway, she is somebody that is training to be, or like has been, the vessel almost for one of the gods in this world. And then right before she's about to basically be sacrificed as like a young girl, this magician, also an orc, comes to the area where she is and is like, you don't really like need to necessarily do this. And she ends up kind of going under his wing and ends up being like his assassin apprentice, um, part of all the political scheming. So this is again heavily political schemy stuff. Um, a lot of stuff about gods and old gods and gods meddling in the affairs of people, and spies and like again sort of that espionage type stuff. What was slightly confusing about this book, and maybe if someone's read it, they can like tell me, because maybe I was spacing out a little more than I thought that I was reading the audio sometimes. There's almost like this I'm like, is this sci-fi esque? Because there's like going to different worlds and like your ship, but I'm like, I don't think it's a ship on the ocean. I don't know. Parts of that world building were like slightly unclear to me. Um, and maybe I just missed something in the way that things were like done. Like I thought that there was like gates and stuff. I don't know. It seemed almost sci-fi adjacent to me. Um, but most of the other stuff is very very magic and things like that. So this was fun. I mean, I read this at the beginning of, oh, it's also Sapphic, by the way. Um, but I read this at the beginning of last month, and there are elements of it that already, again, I'm a little bit like spacey on, because there were parts that I think I zoned out of a little bit, but the end and the way that like, well, one, again, there's like a Sapphic romance, which is very wonderful, and both of those characters are very cool. And there's things about the end, and if you like own world gods, I think you'd like this. Also, just like a different take on orcs. Very fun. So yeah, end up giving this 3.75 stars. It's a duology, and I'm going to read the next book because it's already out. So yeah, if you want something a little bit different, this might be a good time. Then I read all of these I happen to actually have copies of, and then we're going to get into all the stuff that I got from the library. Then I picked up Where the Drowned Girls Go by Shannon McGuire. This is what, book 7 or 8 of this series. I wish they actually labeled them on the sides because that would be so helpful. But this is one of the installments, if you read this series, about kids who go through portals into different worlds and then come back, and then they end up at the school to almost be like rehabilitated to kind of like wait for their doors, but like some of them never go back and whatever. Every other book is either about a new character and usually them going through their door, or maybe it's an existing character, but it just kind of follows them and going through their door, or it goes to like I don't want to say real world, but like it goes to like the school and like you get sort of an ensemble cast. This is sort of a mix because we follow a character that we've seen for like a little bit, Cora, who hasn't really had her own book. Um, she had a traumatic experience in one of the previous books, one of the previous ensemble books, and so she's dealing with that trauma, and she ends up wanting to go to a different school that's not Eleanor West's school, um, school for children, where basically they like forget. Like she wants to like forget and go back to normal, but then she gets there, and like she's warned about this. Yeah, this is the same Every Heart a Doorway series. Um, but when she gets there, realizes that it's like basically like a jail for kids, very similar to like like mental health institutions kind of, or like psych wardy feeling of like you can't leave, and they like sort of brainwash them and whatever. There for a novella, it's so like it doesn't have enough time to kind of do what it needs to. I almost feel like, and this felt like a little. I didn't feel like there was like a really good character arc here as far as like did she really need to go to this school? So what I feel like this was actually doing was there's an introduction of a character in here that I think might end up being like an overarching villain in the series. This does show people that are not um, reacting in the same way that like Eleanor West and like her school and her kids do. So now you have this like bigger villain who might impact the doors, and I feel like that was the introduction of them instead of it really being like as much about Cora as I was expecting or wanting. Um, I tend to really like, as far as the series, I liked the first part of this series slightly more than these later books. I think the last book I really liked was the last one that had Jack and Jill in it. Jack and Jill are some of my favorite characters. So that was 2 books ago, 3 books ago, 2 books ago. But I feel like some of these later installments are not hitting in the same way and are not as like hitting all the beats they need to almost, which is a little bit disappointing. But this one was fine. I think I gave it 3 stars. Yeah, I gave it 3 stars. It's like just fine. I still like this overall. I'm reading this series, so yeah, I'm gonna read the next book at the moment. And then they just announced a book after that that's coming out. This is one of the nominees for the Hugos. I don't think this is gonna be one that necessarily I'm gonna think is a winner, but the Hugos love Shauna McGuire, so it is a long series. They are all connected. I wouldn't say they're standalones. You can start with Across the Green Grass Fields, which is apparently like where Shannon says that you can, and that's like book 6. Apparently you can go in at that one. I would say these later installments aren't as good. So like, I would say go and start at the beginning. They're novellas. They're short. Um, so yeah, but yeah, they're all sort of interconnected. Um, some of the standalone in between books don't necessarily connect back. No, they all kind of end up eventually. Like the character who was in Across the Green Grass Fields pops up in this one, but is not a POV character. You know, so yeah. Um, I was starting to feel the same way with the most recent one, all-time fave. Okay, good to know. I am excited to get to the more recent ones because I feel like the Lost in the Moment and Found was one of the characters that they talk about. Like it's her book, one of the characters they talk about in this one, which is good. Finally finished Saint Death's Daughter in July. Have you seen if a sequel's been announced? Yes, finally. I actually need to like fully add that to my Goodreads for books that are coming out, but good. Um, although 2025 is so far away, so I'll probably forget everything about that book by the time that rolls around. Then I will actually just pull up stuff on my phone, so you can see covers, and maybe in the future I will use streaming platforms to actually post this so I can show you guys covers and it can be all pretty. But again, I just needed to do this because it had been too long. But I read What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. So What Moves the Dead is one of the novellas that's nominated for the Hugos. It is a retelling of The Fall of House Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. And so we have a character who goes and visits his childhood friends. Actually, no, their childhood friends. Sorry, I'm forgetting that there's gender fun stuff that's happening. So in this world, there are, if you become a soldier, you basically become non-gendered, and like soldiers use um, uh, like different pronouns than anyone else does. And if you're a soldier, you're a soldier, and like you don't really have a gender. Um, So essentially like a non-binary human, but it's because of like being a soldier and stuff. Anyway, so they used to know the guy from the military, but they also all grew up together. And the sister ends up writing and being like, "My brother thinks that I'm dying. You should come visit. Help." Blah. So our main character gets to this house, and like first off, before they even get up there, it's like all weird, and they're like the rabbits are acting funny. Um, there's a whole thing about like mushrooms at the very beginning, and yeah, so they get in the house and they're like something is wrong, and like the way that these people look is like they look like they're dead people walking, like it's wild. So if you know anything about Fall the House of Usher, it follows a lot of that, but it makes it like it fleshes it out more. And if you enjoy, like I enjoy, um, gothic horror where nature is corrupting people. That's what this is, which I love. I just keep reading sort of gothic horror where nature is doing stuff, and I love it. Um, I enjoyed this highly. I gave this 4.25 stars. It's scary. At least I think it was scary. I find gothic horror particularly scary. It's very atmospheric and very like eerie. When you're also like just the mystery of like what the fuck. What kept it from being a whole 5 stars is there are parts about it that I still felt like because we're fleshing this story out more, maybe some stuff could have been explained like slightly more, um, or things maybe not wrapped up so quickly and easily. But otherwise, I highly enjoyed it. So yeah, the next book, I don't know if it's just gonna be a duology, but there's gonna be another book in the series following the same character, and I think it's gonna follow another Poe story potentially. But yeah, this was very fun and cool. And so far as my top contender, I think for novellas for the Hugos. This is nominated for a Hugo. I think I mentioned that. So yeah, we will see. Then I'm not going to show you all the covers because it doesn't look nice on my phone. Anyway, then I listened to Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. There are in-depth thoughts for this in the live show. So this was for House Salt Book Club. We did the live show like last week before. And so we talk about this at length. But this is Taylor Jenkins Reid's, what to say. Most recent installment of like sort of her historical fiction world. After this, apparently she's not doing the historical fiction anymore. I think that's false, and that she's going to keep doing it, but we'll see. But this is taking place like sort of 80s into 90s and follows Carrie Soto, who's a character that popped up in Malibu Rising. These are all sort of interconnected, sort of companion novels. Who is a Latina tennis player. And so we follow her life as far as like getting into professional tennis. And then the whole thing is that she's retired, and then someone's about to break her record for most Grand Slams or trophy, whatever. And she wants to come back out of retirement to defend her record. So the thing is with this, I continue to prefer Evelyn Hugo is my favorite of the Taylor Jenkins Reid's books, and then Daisy Jones is second favorite. This is maybe three, but far down from Daisy Jones, and then Malibu Rising was my least favorite. But this is it's all tennis, and I know some people are like, well, yeah, it's a story about tennis, just the way that like Daisy Jones was a story about music. No, 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 no. It's like a play-by-play of tennis, and it's almost like if all of Daisy Jones had just been performances. Like it's all tennis. Granted, by the end, did she have me slightly caring about tennis? A little bit. So I will say that there's like something there, but I didn't really feel that connected to the characters. Carrie Soto as a character felt very one note, and I think in a lot of ways was supposed to, because she was just like very single-minded about her goals. Um, but I didn't find her particularly interesting. There's also not a romance to kind of root a lot of this in the same way that there has been previously in some of the other books. I think that she does better. Taylor Jenkins Reid does better when she has a romance to sort of root some of these things. Um, so as she's moved away from like a really core romance, I almost think the books are getting worse because that's the way that she most successfully for me fleshes out her characters. Um, so yeah, this was just like fine. I'm gonna forget this very, very quickly. I gave this 3 stars. The audiobook was like fine. Again, we talk more about it in depth on the live show, and Marinez, who is Latina and like knows things about like culture and words and whatever, like can talk about some of the things about like a white woman writing another woman of color, and like the Spanish used in the writing being like entirely accurate and stuff like that. From just a plot writing standpoint, this is just like very mid, not even taking some of those things into consideration. So, would I continue to read Taylor Jenkins Reid stuff? Like, it really depends on what she comes out with next, and if it's like an era or topic that is interesting. I feel like I personally feel like she's going to stay on the historical fiction train, even if she says she's not going to, because it's a cash cow for her. Why wouldn't she? Anyway, um, the next thing I read was Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk, which is another nominee for the Hugos. This is one of the novella nominees. This is a sapphic story, and this so reminded me of the P.J. Dudley Clark Master of Gin in just like the way that it was set up. So it's this like this woman who made a Faustian deal with the devil or a demon or whatever a while ago to save someone that she really cared about, and so now she needs to deliver souls. Is that part of it? Either way, her timeline's running out. Like she got like 10 years or something, and then like she's gonna die. But she has this woman that she's in love with, and she gets this like one final mission kind of, and it turns out that like something could happen to where like she could almost get her soul back and like keep living her life. And so there's this whole like detective, like paranormal detective story thing going on. So this I found delightful. This is definitely my second favorite of the novellas thus far that I've read for the Hugos. Again, reminded me a lot of Master of Gin by Peter Dudley Clark. It just felt like very similar in some of the like the atmosphere, and just like the pacing and stuff, except for this was a novella and that was an actual novel. But yeah, I really dug this, and I was like, I read it very quickly. I think I read it like a day or two, not even. And yeah, I can see why it's getting a lot of buzz and a lot of hype from people. Um, the other novella that I read, the last one that I read this month, was A Mirror Mended, which is by Alex E. Harrow. This is the second book in this series. The first one was A Spindle Splintered, which I read last year for the Hugos, which is essentially a sort of fairy tale retelling-ish, but with alternate dimensions. Like, we basically follow a character who is like a not Cinderella, a Sleeping Beauty variant. And then this book goes into like more of that. And in this book, A Mirror Mended, this character encounters like a villain and is like, the villain's like, why can't I change my life? And like, you're running from your past and blah, 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 blah. So this was like interesting thematically. This also has some sapphic stuff in it. Although, at least the way that this was voiced, I wasn't really sure how like old the other character was supposed to be, and I was like, this is kind of like a little weird to me. But the ideas that it tries to address of like what is fate and can you change your fate and can you run from fate and the consequences of running from fate and da 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 were interesting. And I think if there's going to be another book in the series, which I'm unsure, that could be interesting as well, because there's definitely things that were not wrapped up with this. But 3 stars. I think that I liked the end of A Spindle Splintered more, but I liked this book overall more. Yeah, I would say like this is some of her weakest work. Yeah, I really liked Once and Future Witches, like that her novel. I'm excited about Starling House, which is a novel that's coming out. But like, yeah, this novella series doesn't seem to be her strongest work, and I think she might do better as an author with novels when she does have more time. Oh, this is about Polk. I need to read more Polk. The Witchmark trilogy is one of my favorite reads the past 5 years, with the first being my because East romance. I've heard really good things about Witchmark. Yeah, and this novella is great. Again, if you like a detective story, for sure, it's like very, very fun. And yeah, finally, the last thing that I read last month was Belladonna by Adeline Grace. This is about a girl who has basically, I mean, this is a new adult book, by the way. It's like a little bit more sexier than just like a YA. But it's following a woman, Signa, who has basically escaped death. Like, her whole family was basically poisoned when she was an infant, and like she's almost had this like immunity to death from there on out. Like she can poison herself, she can do all these things, and like she won't die. But she can see death, like she can see death as in like the Grim Reaper figure. When that happens, and is able to kind of like talk to death. And so over the years, like she has sort of had death as like this constant companion. She's had like a bunch of like foster parents and family that have like also suddenly died around her. And she finally goes to this like house of like a cousin or something who um like the cousin has like died, but then like her daughter is ailing, and so like now she like is sort of trying to get like feel at home with this family, has a sort of like interesting dynamic with death and like wanting to learn, like she might potentially have some like powers associated with death, so she's trying to like learn things from death and whatever. There's also a mysterious like stable hand that she sort of has the eyes for, so she's kind of like eyeing both the stable hand and death. And so if you enjoy like a death in the maiden story, it's pretty good. I liked it. This was like super fun. There's like some mystery elements to like a who done it, as far as like the like poisoning. Is death really following her? Is she sort of like cursed or whatever? What are these powers? How is she going to use them? Whatever. And this is duology. So the next book I think is about to come out. Fox Love. I love things with poison. So again, Belladonna and stuff. So poisoning is a big part of this. And the fantasy elements are like a little bit lighter, but again, we still have these elements of like death as an archetype and things like that. So yeah, if you enjoy Death in the Maiden, new adult, because I think she's like 20, little bit of spice. This is great. I enjoyed this actually. So I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I'll continue with this duology when the next book comes out. So yeah, that's where I am with the books that I read last month. I already have read like 4 things this month. It's been like a pretty decent reading month. And as far as like stats and stuff, just to like update you guys on like where I am with everything, including the books like I'm currently reading. My stats are that I've read 49 books, so I'm almost to my 52. And let's see. Iffy with some of the ratings. So only 8% of the books I've read have been 5 stars. 38% have been 4 stars, and 48% have been 3 stars. So kind of like a mid year as far as some of the books that I've been reading, which is interesting because I haven't been reading as many of the books off my TBR as I said that I was going to, and I think that's also what screwed me over a little bit. So I've only read 16. Well, if we count what I'm currently reading, right? So let me check those off. So 17. So I've read 17 out of like the 49 books that I said I needed to read on my TBR. Like, great. Good for me. So I need to really like buckle down. But again, like so many of these books I read from the library. I've read so much from the library. Like, that's why, again, similar to what I just talked about recently, on my like mid-year check-in video. But yeah, 45% of what I've read has been from Libby. And even some of those books have been books that I do own, but I just read them on Libby instead. Like I'm doing so much library reading, which is great, but I also want to read the books on my TBR. Any books you want to read in August and September? So I've already read a few things. I'm gonna get to The Witch King by Martha Wells because that is our Patreon book club pick for this quarter. I'm currently rereading the Expanse series. I'm on book 2 of the Expanse series rereads. Then I need to reread book 3, and then I will read for the first time books 4 and 5. I don't know if that'll all be in August and September, but I'm hoping to at least get through the rereads. We'll hopefully start Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb sometime in the next month or so. That's kind of what I'm sticking to. And then I will probably wrap up the Hugo nominee books in August and September, by October. I think voting happens in October. I'm not voting because I didn't buy a membership for this year for the Hugos, but I will still be posting about like what my thoughts are, what I would vote for, things like that. So those are my reading plans. But in addition to the reading, I'm sort of trying to like get my reading timelines back in order because I just took up bouldering, climbing, which is why you won't see nails very often anymore. Tragedy, I know. But I've been meaning to rock climb for like over 10 years, and now I finally have a membership and I'm doing it. So I went today. It's very fun. I will only be wearing nails press-ons for like big events and stuff. Like I had press-ons on for my birthday. But then they peel off like the next day, and it's perfect, and I can reuse that set like forever. So end of an era for the nails a little bit. I don't know how to deal with that originally, but it's fine. So doing that. And there's also yoga at that bouldering studio, which is very fun. So I've been doing more like yoga and stuff, and trying to cut out a little bit of the social media. Not that it's been horrible. Actually, over the last week, I haven't been on social media that much at all. But I do know that a lot of my time spent after work is sometimes just like scrolling on social media, and then I don't get reading done. But I am also currently playing through God of War Ragnarok, and I next month will start playing Baldur's Gate 3, and then I'm not going to want to read at all because I'll just play Baldur's Gate all the time. So these are the issues. But I'm going to get to my 52 books read this year, which is like the only goal that needs to happen. And then hopefully I will take a chunk out of my TBR books soon-ish. We'll see. But yeah, so those are the books that I read this month. If you guys have any comments about any of these things, definitely leave it in the chat or in the comments if you're watching this later. Next month, or really like the end of this month, I will hopefully have a little bit more of a setup so that I can like show you guys covers and stuff like that, because I just think that's more fun to watch as a viewer personally. But yeah, I'm content with my reading so far this year. I'm hoping the second half of the year is slightly better as far as ratings. I want to get some more 5 stars in. I don't know what those will be, but I hope they will pop up for me in my life. So yeah. Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out. It's good to see you in the chat. And yeah, I will hopefully be back soon with some stuff. I have some content I have to edit still and put up. So yeah, you will see my face slightly more often, hopefully, in the next coming months. I'll talk to you guys later, though. All right.